Hey, welcome back. It's Erica Bonavita over here at Scissortail Meadow Studio. Just wanted to pop in for a quick video today and talk a little bit about creative practice. And some of these are going to be a little less obvious than the usual, draw more, things like that, which is definitely in there. But I wanted to talk about staying in a creative practice as either somebody who is already a creative, a painter or an artist or something else like that, or for other people who just kind of wanted to start to get into a creative practice. So one of the things about that is kind of defining what does that even mean? And this could probably be different for other people, but for me, a creative practice is spending time during your day doing something with your mind that is a transformation of something, and that could be it could be really broad. And for me, it is really broad. I used to have a really narrow focus of what that I thought that meant, which is why I actually didn't even see myself as a creative person until, I don't know, maybe the last 5 or 10 years. I'm like, oh, duh, of course I'm a creative person. But I didn't really see it that way because my paintings for so long were so literal. They were such I'd take a reference photo and then I would turn it into a painting, which of course did have my own interpretation on it. But I just thought, since I'm copying from the model of what this photo is, that's not creative. I'm not being creative. So I think that redefining that for yourself is also really important. And that's kind of been something that I have worked on. So to get into it a little bit, there's a few different ways that I like to maintain a creative practice. And something that I've started implementing here recently is a daily sketch and journal. And the thing with this is I like to keep it super duper low pressure. Like a sketch for me could be as little as 30 seconds. I could literally draw a stick figure and that would qualify. Because I noticed that I didn't draw and I was almost, I'd say, afraid to draw. So at this point, I always, it does not matter how tired I am. I like to do it sometimes in the morning and sometimes in the evening. I really play around with time. But by the end of the day, when I go to bed, there's a sketch. And it's the main overarching theme for me has been, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be. So, I look around the room or I look for something in my day that's inspiring or something that's happening with me. Christmas, you could draw a Christmas tree, or, if it's somebody's birthday or New Year's, I drew these glasses that the kids had for 2026. But sometimes it's just as simple as like, oh, there's a water bottle sitting in front of me. I'll draw that. And this is like really good to get you just in the flow of it. So you're actually doing it. I like to keep this in a sketchbook journal so I can write on it. I also think, again, writing is a creative practice. I like to talk about my goals, talk about my day, talk about the day ahead of me if I'm doing it in the morning. And this is just like a really good therapeutic practice for your brain. And it helps get things on paper that out of your mind. And that usually helps a lot with, for me anyway, it helps a lot with just like processing things, processing emotions and feelings. So that's just one way. This is a daily sketchbook journal practice. So as little or as much as you want to go with that. You could write a novel or you could write a sentence, today sucked, or today was amazing. But it can be as involved or as simple as you want it to be. So that's one method. Another thing that I love to do is I also recently implemented a 15-minute a day creative practice. And this goes beyond my journal and sketchbook because that's something that I require for myself all the time. And the 15-minute one is different. It is anything and everything. This could be writing, this can be painting, it could be playing around with something that you don't normally do, embroidery, sewing. There's gardening is a good one. Lots of different methods and things that you could be doing. But the purpose of this is to get you started. It's kind of this concept of, Well, if I just start with the minimum of 15 minutes, it's super low pressure, low barrier. But then once you get into that 15 minutes, you don't want to stop. So you're like, oh, well, I was in the middle of writing this story. I'm not going to just stop writing this story. So 15 minutes becomes 45. And those chunks of time add up so much that at the end of the week, you could have created something if you worked on the same thing all the days of the week, or if you switched up to different things. By the end of the week, you either have a new skill or you have new muscle memory. Just a lot of different things come out of that 15-minute practice. And sometimes it will be just the 15 minutes. You get done and you're like, okay, I got that out of the way. I didn't want to write today, but I wrote. So boom, done, good. But other days it's just going to flow like crazy. And that's part of getting into that creative practice. Like, you actually have the practice of doing it. And then after a while, it just becomes something you do habitually every day. It's autopilot. You're like, okay, I got home from work today. Before I get started on dinner, let me get my 15 minutes of creative time out of the way. And I really do recommend that you have like a list of things to pull from, because some days you're like, oh God, heck no, I'm not going to do this, or this, but maybe instead I want to do this. So that's some tips. And then the last thing that I've been doing that I love is something I call Creativity Sunday. And this is where I will spend a little bit longer. This could be, hour, 2 hour, maybe 3 hour session of working on something. And the main thing for this is you give yourself permission for this to not be your normal thing. So as an oil painter, it was really a struggle for me to not do an oil painting, because I'm like, oh, this is my studio time. I'm supposed to be working on this. I have to do this. I'm not allowed to do all of these little tangents. Like, I wanted to do jewelry making, but I was like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're an oil painter. I want to play with embroidery and do sewing projects and all of these other really fun things. But I wasn't giving myself permission to do it, because I felt like it was being disloyal to my studio practice. So Creativity Sundays are about letting go of that and just whatever you want to do. And there's a lot of things in there that you might not think of as part of a creative practice. So this Sunday, what we're going to be doing is my daughter wants a particular cake for her birthday. So we're going to spend all day Sunday cake baking and decorating. And I think that's such a fun and creative process, because you really get to play around with something different. And it's I'll be playing with colors and utilizing different tools to make things. So I think that's going to be an absolute blast. Another thing that I really love to do is watercolors, and I don't let myself do it because it's taking away. But this is Creativity Sunday, anything goes. So I love to do different watercolors. Having some of those exercises that you might want to work on, that's really helpful. So I like to write down whenever I think of something. Like with watercolors, I love to do just colors. Like I might pick a color palette of pinks, purples, and blues. And those might just be little flowy lines, like a topography map. Or I might just do a bunch of shapes so that I can kind of practice circles. Or maybe that day I know I want to work on shading. So having some ideas ready to go, because a lot of the time whenever you don't have an idea, because you might have ideas swirling around all the time, but then when you come and sit down to actually do it, poof, gone, magic. It's like, oh, my brain is empty. So having those written down ahead of time, I like to keep a note on my phone so I can just kind of fill in. And then whenever I'm like, oh, what do I do? Creativity's gone. The notes are there for that. So that's super helpful. I like to play with like pointillism, doing little dots to draw something. That's super fun and completely different and not something I do a lot. But also, so some other things that you might not consider creative that you're already doing, like sourdough has been such a big trend right now. That's super creative, especially if you're like playing with different recipes, different flavor combos. Cooking itself is very creative. And I think because it's part of our everyday lives, we don't think of that, but it's absolutely a creative outlet, especially if you're somebody who likes to watch like baking competitions or try out some kind of absurd new recipe you've never messed with, or try different cuisines. Those are some really good ways to be creative and do something a little bit more involved with your Creativity Sunday. Maybe you try, a beef Wellington recipe. That's going to take you all day to mess with. So those are some ideas. You know, you might try out a new hobby, cross stitch or embroidery, wood burning. You could try different mediums from what you normally do. If I'm an oil painter, I might try acrylics. I love playing with pastels. Personally, I prefer the pastel pencils, the dry ones, chalk ones. Those are so much fun. So those are some. Oh, gardening is also an underrated creative outlet. So January, February, this is such a good time to be working on this. I'm personally working on my garden plan for the spring, summer. And that is very creative, like figuring out where things are going to go, what plants you want to grow, would this look good with that? Layering different textures and colors and sizes and shapes. So absolutely, I mean, it's like painting with plants. So that's another great one. What else? Yeah, that's kind of like the main ones that I've considered. But definitely try to think outside of the box. Try to look at what you're already doing that you think is part of your everyday life. And you might be able to reframe that as a creative exercise. And it could be that you are ready to put more creativity into it. So like back to the cooking example, if you cook like the same 10 meals all the time, because that's what you always make, then get creative. Like try a different culinary experience. You can try a cuisine you've never tried. Try making Thai food, or it would be so fun to go on like a culinary journey of the world. You could pick a different flavor profile for every month. Like, January, you're going to try to make authentic Mexican food, and February, you want to see what the flavors of Greece hold. So definitely look at what you're already doing and where you can bring in some creativity, and then look for other outlets, because creativity and having something like that is such a good release of stress for your brain. So let me know if you gave any of those ideas a try, and if you have any questions or if you want to hear more about that topic. I'll see you guys next time.